Hey everybody, it's Romania Black. Oh, we're finally on the last of the OVAs. So at the end of season 1, I watched several OVAs. I watched Distress, I watched Elsie's Notebook, I watched Sudden Visitor, and I watched No Regrets. And so there was a lot there. Parts 1 and part 2 of No Regrets. I view No Regrets as just one OVA, but Funimation has it down as 2 because there's technically 2 parts. So yeah, 3 different OVA series. It was great. Technically 4. Yeah, 4. Sudden Visitor, Distress, Elsie's Notebook, and No Regrets. That was a major Titan week. And so I have not watched the Lost Girls OVAs. I've been saving them until the end of season 3. And we're here. So it's now time to bust these out and watch Lost Girls. So I'm watching the ones with Annie, Wall Sina, Goodbye, part 1 and part 2. I'm watching them together in this video. And then the other reaction, I'm going to be watching the one with Mikasa called Cruel World. But y'all told me I had to wait till season 3, the end of season 3, to watch this. So I feel like even though they may not be canon, there's still some connection. We'll talk about this in the recap video, but I'm really disappointed that we've gotten so little Annie in this series. We've gotten like no Annie. Annie's been like, she was in season 1 and she was a big player in season 1, and then season 2 and season 3 she just bowed out. So it's not her fault, right? But I'm so disappointed that we haven't gotten a lot of Annie. And so I'm really excited to watch these 2 OVAs because I'm like, okay, cool. We get back into her character. And maybe that's prefacing she's going to come back in season 4. Who knows? Don't spoil me. But in any case, I'm really excited to watch them and see what all is going down in these OVAs. I'm very, very curious. So with that being said, we're going to watch them. I'm going to watch them back to back. So I'm going to take notes. I'm going to get my notepad out. I'm going to take notes as we go in case if something strikes out, since I'm watching 2 OVAs and they're about 23 minutes each. So about an hour's worth. But yeah, let's do this, shall we? We're going to watch Lost Girls Wall Sina Goodbye, part 1 and part 2. And we're going to start that here in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and let's go. I'm glad that I waited until the end of season 3 to watch this. I'm really glad I waited, actually, because knowing what we know now about Marley and about them sending the Marleyan warriors to go to Shiganshina to break it down, and sent Annie and Reiner and Bertolt and Marcel on this mission. Based on what we know now, it's interesting to watch this because it takes place right before episode 17 of season 1, right? So it takes place right before Annie went off to find Eren. And it's funny because now that we know what we know about the whole history and the story and everything around it, it's really interesting to go back to Annie's perspective. So yeah, I'm also glad that I watched this at the end of season 3 because of Marco's death. If I'd watched this right after season 3 part 1, that whole part of Descent would have been spoiled, right? Would have been spoiled. So I'm glad y'all voted to have me watch this at the end. That was really good on ya. Really glad I didn't watch this back in season 1, right? So the idea of whatever must be done, do it until the end. Like, do it until it's done. Like, once you set out to do a mission, you complete it. That's what Annie's been taught. And the weird thing about all of this is that Annie is an Eldian, just like Annie's an Eldian, just like Eren, just like everybody inside the walls. It's just she's been hired out by the Marleyan government to be a warrior and do this for Marley, right? But she's an Eldian. That's the only reason she can turn into a Titan, right? So I've got some things I want to talk about the dad, her father and all this, but Hitch, going back to episode 4 in season 3 and knowing that Hitch wanted to be friends with Annie, that all makes more sense now that she wanted to be friends with Annie. Makes more sense because she's trying to cover for her. Hitch really caused this entire series, right? Hitch is a linchpin. She covered for her and let her go off. I was wondering way back in season 1, I was like, how did Annie get away and nobody noticed? And Hitch was like, I'll cover for you. And I'm like, wow, Hitch, you really caused all of this without realizing it, you know? And so I love that Hitch tries to be friendly with her and like trades her. She's like, oh, you want to take a day off tomorrow? Fine, but you got to do this for me. You got to do this mission. And Hitch didn't say she didn't even think she'd do it. And it's like, ugh. And then at the very end, she gives her the pin with the rose. She's like, your lack of charm is appalling. So that's interesting. I wonder if they'll ever make note of that she got the rose pin again. I guess probably not. Probably not. They probably won't do that. But man, these were actually really good. I mean, who knew Annie being Batman, Annie being a detective, right? So interesting. So interesting. But yeah, the idea of playing soldier, that she's had so much trauma from Marco's death that just happened about a month ago, as we find out, it happened a month ago in the timeline. So she's still reeling from that, from killing him. And yeah, pretty traumatizing. But she's like, I'll play soldier to distract me from the stress of the mission tomorrow. So doing exactly what Reiner does, like playing soldier. And I like that the letter that Reiner sends her is, Hitch calls it boring, but it's filled with tiny little things like, haven't found Aaron yet, but here's like some little hints and clues of where we're at so you can come find us. It's like, So yeah, so basically, the interesting thing about all this is Annie, from Annie's perspective in this episode, she gets a lot of people telling her that because of the events of Shiganshina, it's kind of led to this moment, right? So there's the father who is having this business, and because of Shiganshina falling, his business crumbled. And so his daughter, who has a chemistry major, I should have put two and two together. His daughter, who has the chemistry degree, she started making, they called it Coderoin, but it was like Coderin. It's like heroin, kind of, is what it sounds like. But she starts making this drug and selling it to try to keep her father's, estate floating. And then later on, Wald, the guy with the suit and the fake eye, he comments that if Shiganshina had been attacked a day later, his son Peter would have lived and they would have been together in the interior, and he probably wouldn't have been doing any of this business either. So it's like, it's establishing that Annie's actions, that her actions along with Reiner and Bertold have had significant consequence, and she's getting to see that. But it doesn't dissuade her from her mission because she's so dedicated to it, and she's been sent on this mission to do it. And we find out, why it's so important. She has the same resolve that Reiner does. She wants to go back home. She wants to be back with her family. And even though her dad, and we will talk about the dad in a minute, but she just wants to go back home. And so she's like, I have to do this mission. I have to capture Eren Yeager. That's the mission. And it's crazy, right? And so that makes sense later on when she's crying, going back to like, God, crushing blow and everything. When she's crying, it goes back to all that she's failing her mission. She's not going to get to go back home unless she does it. And so it's like, So yeah, I like that we get all this stuff here, but the idea that her father said you deal with absolute obedience. Meaning that if the Marlene government tells you to do something, you do it, you don't question it, right? And that's why, and he says that this is the reason why you were born. So we know from the basement and from that day, we know the idea that the Marlene government was recruiting warriors, and they were doing it to help attack Eldia or attack Paradise. And so there's two theories with this. There's two theories here. One theory is that the father wanted to train Annie to become a Marlene warrior because it's her way out of poverty and wherever they're at. That's one thing. But I wondered towards the end if maybe her dad possibly was one of the Titans was a Titan shifter at one point and gave her the power, because he had a bloody nose at one point. So I wondered if maybe he was a Titan shifter and she gained the power from him, or the government made her gain the power from him. I don't know. Or maybe it's just that she beat him up. The fact that he broke his leg and his leg will never go back to the way it was, and he's like, good job, Annie. It's like, you get the idea, based on what we've learned from episode 20 and 21 of season 3, that based on what we've learned, that she really just didn't have a choice in becoming a Titan shifter. Her father's like, no, we're going to do this. I've raised you for this purpose. And her father could be in the Marleyan government too. And he's basically told the Marleyan government, kind of like what Grisha did with Zeke. He could have been like, here's my daughter. She'll become a Titan shifter for you all, and she'll do whatever you tell her to. And he's trained her for that. So, but Annie, I forget about Annie's personality. Her kicking ass. Like, she's just so dry. Annie's such a dry character. But it's funny. She's so dry and very straightforward and straight-laced. But she also clearly has some compassion. That's the sad thing about it. It's like she tries to feed the cat in that one scene. Like, she tries to offer food to the cat, and the cat hisses at her and runs away. But she clearly was trying to be kind. And then in her kindness, she's reminded of Marco dying, and then she's like, So you almost get the impression that Annie feels the guilt of Marco's death, and she's like, I don't deserve kindness because I've been so awful. And that ties back to Smile when she tells Armin, she's like, do you think I'm a good person? And then she's like, I'm glad I could look like a good person to you for a while. And it's like, so interesting. But yeah, there's a whole thing with the boyfriend and all that, and that they're dealers of the drugs and everything. Lou's VA, I was amazed that Lou just shot her, but of course he didn't get the nape, so it wouldn't. I don't want to look up. His voice sounded so familiar. Let me see here. Okay, I want to look up the Lost Girls OVA cast. That's what I want to look up. The voice actors for that, okay? I want to look up who the voice actor is because I know that voice actor from somewhere. Okay, Ishikawa. I'm like, who? I want to look him up. I know that voice from somewhere. So it's Ishikawa is the voice actor. And I know I've heard that voice from somewhere. It's like, where have I heard this voice from? Oh, it's Ida. Oh, wait. No, it's Ida from My Hero Academia. Hold on. Who else does he voice? Kageyama! Oh my god, Ida and Kageyama from Haikyuu. That's where that voice is from. Oh my gosh, okay. Yes, I was like, I knew that voice from somewhere and it was driving me crazy. I was like, where have I heard that voice from? Lou's voice actor was Ida from My Hero Academia and Kageyama from Haikyuu. I was like, oh, Ishikawa. Okay. I knew it from somewhere. I was like, that voice is so distinct, and I couldn't place it, but okay. Yeah, he's just shooting her straight up in the face. I do like, and see, Annie, the other thing showing her compassion in that moment is that, the other thing showing Annie's compassion is that when Wald is dying, she reaches down and puts a cigarette in his mouth and lets him die with a cigarette in his mouth like he wanted to. Everybody was smoking around Annie this whole OVA. Everybody kept like blowing smoke in her face, and she's just like. And then finally, by the end, when the dad is doing it, she's like, "Can you stop smoking and drinking? I've had enough of that all day." So, and then yeah, God. So we can establish with Annie. Annie hates cigarette smoke. She hates smoke. She likes donuts. And she likes limeade. That's what we can establish about Annie. I can't believe she just did the Titan arm. She didn't do the full Titan, just the arm to get out of the carriage. Interesting. And she wanted that ring back. The ring that her father gave her. That part with Wald in the carriage with the ring, that was so good. I loved that part. That was such a tense little, she's like, I have to get that ring back somehow. And then she does. But man, no, that was a good OVA. It satisfied my need to see Annie again. Annie's trapped somewhere encased in ore. We'll never see her again. I'll talk about it in the recap, but I'm so sad that we've seen Annie for one season and she's disappeared. She has to come back in season 4. She has to. Either they're going to give her Titan powers to somebody else or something. She can't just sit there trapped in stone forever, right? I don't know, but yeah, these two are really good. I liked these OVAs a lot. I really enjoyed them. It's good to see Annie just kicking ass and taking names and just being awesome like she usually is. And it's funny rewatching this with the perspective of Marley and of the Eldians and everything and tying this all together and knowing what we know in season 3 about the interior police and about everything else. It's very fascinating to watch this after the fact and seeing it all kind of come together. But yeah, so I'm very curious to know your thoughts down below with this OVA and what y'all thought of it. But yeah, it's pretty good. I enjoyed that a lot. But it was good to see Marlo again. Bless his heart. Seeing Marlo just being an upstanding citizen. Seeing Hitch get all dressed up to go gallivanting about and gave Annie an old hairpin and thought she was dating Reiner. It's like, I thought so too, Hitch. Back in season 1, I thought Reiner and Annie would be a thing, but nope. Nope. So I'm curious to know your thoughts down below. We still have to watch Lost in the Cruel World, the other Lost Girls one, which I'll do here in a few days and before we do the recap. But in the meantime, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back soon with the final OVA for Attack on Titan. Bye.